Here's an old school title, though I hesitate to give it the word classic. Not many have probably heard of this one, and there's probably a good reason for that. Released for the Super Nintendo in 1993, Super Strike Eagle was one of the first attempts to bring the sort of quasi-realistic arcadey jet fighter to the home consoles. I'll give it some credit, the title was very ambitious. However, it could not escape the technical limitations of its system. The game pits you in the role of an F-15 pilot for the UN, tasked with bringing rogue nations who are up to no good back in line for the sake of world peace. And that's pretty well the entirety of the story and setting. Enjoy. Now go blow up some terrorist supporters. To accomplish this task, they launch you, a lone pilot with a stupid amount of ordnance, from a nearby airfield or carrier to take out key targets which will cripple the nation's capacity to fight. Blocking your path is every defense the nation can muster, from SAM sites and MiGs to flat cannons and AAA guns. But this is a bit of an oversimplification. The game is separated into multiple zones of engagement, each with their own inherent dangers which you must avoid whilst pressing the attack. Prior to every mission, you're given a basic briefing. Not much to it, but it's useful to give you a general lay of the land and how many targets you can expect to take out before requiring a resupply. Next, you typically begin each mission on a flight deck, if not an airfield, waiting to take off. After a few seconds, you launch off, and as long as you don't dive straight into the ground, off you go to the greater mission. Here you're taken to a broad navigation screen where you locate each of your targets and avoid enemies as best you can. This is the bulk of the game, navigating to the next target while you avoid incoming SAMs, typically with your limited flare and chaff countermeasures, and position yourself against incoming interceptors, both of which will launch in infinite numbers from their own optional target zones until you enter and destroy them. When you reach a target, you select to enter it and are zoomed into a closer top-down view where you'll be put under a constant barrage of flat cannons whilst trying to avoid AAA guns and staying low to the ground so the individual SAMs don't target you until you can find and destroy the central target and leave the area back to the navigation view. To destroy them, you can use your machine guns, but it's your bombs which will play in here. Beginning with a simple lock-on missile, you eventually unlock two other types, one which tells you when to fire to hit, another which is laser-guided to take out targets. None are really better than the others outside preference, but it's a nice option to have. Destroy a main target and you get a small supply bonus like more fuel, ammo, countermeasures, etc. Not much, typically not enough to make a difference in resupply rates due to damage and the like, but it comes in handy. Back in navigation, if an interceptor comes too close, you'll then be sent to a first-person dogfight view, where you'll attempt to shoot down one another with guns or lock-on missiles. Guns are slightly more useful here, with a cursor appearing at extreme close range, but again you'll be depending on missiles, though this time the different options don't matter much. Sparrows seem to lock on a bit faster, but really the differences are negligible. One missile will take out one plane, and once you have a lock on, it's rare to miss. Defeat all opponents and it's back to navigation. Run low on supplies or take enough damage and you can land at a friendly airfield or carrier who will fix you up a limited number of times based on the number beside them in navigation view. And here is where the deadliest part of the game is. Unlike taking off, landing isn't so easy. Come down a little early or late, too far off center, or come in too hard, and that's it, game over, try again. And that's really the thing. No individual encounter is difficult in the game, but you have so many of them that every mission is a gauntlet. See, you only have one life. Lose it and that's it. Mission over. Hope you remember your save code. On top of that, you have very limited resupplies, so you can't afford to go back every time your paint is scratched. This is without even touching on the night missions, more difficult follow-ups to the main and day missions, which offer no resupplies, automatically throw you into targets you pass over, then bunch your targets inside layers of SAM sites and enemy airfields, often on opposite sides of the map, making them true tests of concentration and conservation. No, the game isn't easy, despite individual encounters tending to be simple, and it only gets more and more difficult. The first mission is a walk in the park, get you acquainted with functions, but it quickly sends you to the deep end with an enormous zone your limited fuel supplies can't handle. And the ante is only up from there, with more frequent SAM and aircraft spawns, more difficult dogfight AI, and far more targets. Until the last mission, it's all you can do to survive past the beach, to say nothing of beating the game. Unfortunately, a huge chunk of this difficulty comes from two system limitations: lackluster frame rate and shoddy controls. Now, the frame rate usually isn't much of a problem. While never great, most of the game runs smooth enough to get by. In dogfights, not so much. Coming in at a few frames per second, this really destroys the dogfighting in the game, if the gray, pixelated, and barely comprehensible graphics didn't. A worse problem than this, however, is controls. For starters, the game never tells you how to switch missiles, which isn't such a big deal. The defaults will get you by just as easily, but this is still a rather major issue. Want to try other weapons, and you'll have to experiment with an odd combination of controls to get them working, basically pressing fire and select at the same time, which, even if you had the extremely rare instruction booklet, you wouldn't figure out without testing or someone telling you. The more notable problem, however, is lack of rudder controls. So much of the game wants you to fine-tune your approach, yet all you can do is roll and bank. This really puts the nail in the coffin for dogfighting and makes landing your aircraft the most dangerous thing in the game by far. Perhaps as much a problem as controls is repetition. Levels are all brown, targets are always the same, enemies are always the same. Sure, AI improves a bit later, but that's it. There's little change in functionality in your aircraft, especially by the second of the 4 areas of operation. There are no boss fights. The prologue mission is much the same as the climactic mission, only there's more stuff being thrown at you, and there's a surprising amount of length to the title due to how long missions tend to run and the inevitable restarts due to death. Still, the title isn't without its fun. The navigation view is more fun than it looks, and bombing runs have a simple enjoyment to them. And there's some catharsis in slowly whittling the enemy down target by target. The soundtrack is on point, though non-existent during gameplay, and I was impressed that the game accounted for orientation and map features when switching into different views. For instance, when dogfighting, any SAMs after you will remain so, as well as any active countermeasures and enemy positions will be relative to how you approach one another. Or bombing runs where the terrain will reflect what you see in navigation. Want to make an easier landing? Then approach your carrier or airfield straight on. These touches impressed me for the time. Even so, it's difficult to argue against the severe limitations of the game. Once upon a time, it was a good go-between for people who wanted a bit of that arcade fix, but it was really only made for the enthusiasts and hasn't since held up. Not a classic by any stretch of the imagination, but if you like a little arcade flight game, are looking for some gauntlet-style difficulty in which you and an opponent wear one another down, maybe you'll find a little love here.